Has anybody ever heard of this or seen this? Raise your hands. Yeah, right? So this right here, when I was exposed to this, the Kintsugi process. So it's a Japanese art when it comes to pottery. And so what happened years ago, what happened is that when the plates would break, what would happen is that people would just throw them away. People would just get rid of them like it was trash. Just like at your crib, like if you break a plate, you break a glass, what happens? You just throw it away. But the gentleman who was the creator of this, he said, listen, we're going to stop throwing this pottery away. And what he decided, he said, we are going to put this boy back together, but we're going to put it back together with solid gold. So the thing that used to be not valuable now has so much more value in its broken state. And the thing about it is that they didn't try to remove the brokenness. They wanted you to see the brokenness. They wanted you to see the brokenness because a lot of us sometimes don't see the value in us. So when you show up, a lot of times they can see what's on the exterior, but don't see the value that's on the inside of you and that you can offer to organizations and companies. And so when people come to my office and we're serving them, they come to me, it look like they're broken on the outside. The men that come to us may have all types of issues. But I train my staff to look beyond what I see on the exterior. You don't know my man's trauma. You don't know what he has gone through to get to where he is at this moment. So when we look at this Kintsugi process, that's the people that we see every single day. That's the people that's in this room. Let me ask you this question. Have any of you seen the movie Harriet? Let me see your hands. Seen the movie Harriet? Well, if you didn't, I need you to go watch it. And I just want you to watch this one scene. The scene is when Harriet and her husband was walking up to the slave master. And she had a piece of paper in her hand. And it was telling the slave master that she was free. And there was an agreement between the slave master's grandfather and her grandmother, that when she got to a certain age that she no longer was supposed to be a slave. And so she walked up to my man and showed him, and he asked for the decree, and she gave him the decree. And he looked at her and looked at the decree, and this went on for a few seconds. And you know how the music is in the movie, got real dramatic. And I'm like, man, what's going to happen next? And what happened next, this man ripped up the papers in front of them, sent her husband away, and told her, you'll always be a slave. Yep. So just know I was upset and angry watching that movie. So you'll always be a slave. But the point and the value that I brought out of that, the question is, what if he would have never ripped up the papers? Will Harriet be Harriet? What if some of us was never broken? Would we be who we are today? I tell people this story, and as much as I work with men and I think that I have been healed and all of those things, last year, my daughter was suspended, not because she did something wrong, but because of the instructions that her father gave her. And so my middle daughter is not one that loves conflict, but she came home and she was like telling me or her mom that some people was picking with her. And so I gave her some instruction, right, that wasn't really too favorable. I just be honest. And so when I got when I got a call from her school, they said, your daughter was suspended. And I'm like, for what? For an almost fight. Not for a fight, but an almost fight. But this was the thing, is that we went through the whole thing, and when she came home, took her to soccer practice, leaving soccer on the way home, we start talking about it. And I said, baby, how do you feel? And what she said to me, she said, Dad, I'm hurt. And she began to cry. And now Antoine, like, that's my baby. And so now I'm like, yo, when we go back to school, we need to talk to the principal, her parents. Everybody need to be in that room. And she said, Dad, I'm not crying because of that. She said, I'm crying because of you. And I knew exactly what she was talking about. See, I gave her instructions from the pain and the trauma of a 13-year-old boy. Because I had unresolved issues that when I was 13, I refused to fight when this boy named Titi, still know his name today, that he wanted to fight me, and I avoided it, and the kids laughed at me. And so here this 13-year-old boy still living in trauma at 48 years old, giving his daughter instructions from the 13-year-old little boy. And I had to own it. Had to own it. And not only did I have to own it, I had to talk to that 13-year-old boy. It says, Shon, it wasn't your fault. It was okay to be afraid. It was okay to avoid it. So I had to give myself permission. And so when we're looking at this is a lot of times, and I'm just trying to keep it, 100. When we're hiring people, when we're creating cultures, we need to just stop hiring engineers. See, I get to leave. I get to leave. So I'm gonna say this, and I get to leave. We need to just stop hiring engineers and start looking at the talent. Looking at what people bring to the table. What's their assignment? Because I could hire somebody because they check all the boxes but have no passion. I was one of the dopest, did I say so myself, chaplains that the state of Michigan ever had. And I didn't just say that, they said it. But this was the thing. I didn't know how to interview. I didn't check the boxes. I was nervous as heck. I didn't know how to answer the problems or answer the questions. But when I got in that position, I murdered it. Because I knew how to connect with people. I had empathy. And so when I'm looking at you, brothers and sisters out here, right? Like when you show up, like when you go for your job interview, like don't cower down. Like you stand up, stand tall. Like know who you are, because you're a gift. Listen, when you walk into space like that, like it's like, you deserve to have me. I don't have to be with you. Lansing, this is my assignment. I want to be here. I want to beautify this place. But if you say no, I'm going to go somewhere else.